My focus this afternoon is for us to consider that the church and religious organizations stand at the intersection of all of this, as a matter of fact. That where there are issues of economics, where there are issues of gender equality or inequality, where there are issues that affect children, women, etc., that the church is in the middle of all of it. Because those persons who experience inequalities, injustices, come to faith communities, come to churches. Their parents are there, and parents come seeking hope and seeking help for their children, for their families. And so that sitting at the intersection and trying to hold the tension that is inherent in all of the strands of each of the issues that comes up, I think puts the church in a unique place. In its ideal, in an ideal world, which we do not live in an ideal world, the church stands as a space that really intends, at its best, to level the playing field. And that's what it intends to do. Unfortunately, and I'll have to own this on behalf of the church, while we hold the tension and stand at the intersection, part of that tension is the reality that the church has contributed sometimes to the injustice and to the inequality and to the violence, at the same time contributing to the solutions, contributing to the alleviation of the vulnerability, contributing to leveling the playing field and building stepping stones to give people a chance. And that is a difficult place to be. Trying to straddle both sides, trying to see it from each perspective, and at the same time trying to hold, because persons often look to faith communities for stability, for hope, for guidance, for instruction, etc. And as I speak as a member of the Anglican Church, I mean, when my brother David was talking about all that has happened historically, I was smiling inside, simply because as he talked about the things that did not exist before independence and the like, it occurred to me that the institution that I am a part of has been around more than 200 years. And so we would have been in the middle of all of those things on both sides of those issues. And the reality that the church, in some instances, was seen as the establishment and seen as an instrument of governance and an instrument of the law, and influenced and contributed to the law as we see it and as we know it. But at the same time, the church being the space through which persons who did not have access to education got access to education. Persons who did not have access to healthcare because of economic and class issues got access to proper healthcare, got access to social services, because the church provided spaces and opportunities for persons so that they could be justly treated, so that they could be heard, etc. And that while there may be some who will argue that the church contributes still to some of the violence that people experience and the like, it is the same church and those who work therein who will accompany others to police stations so that representation can happen, who will sit and listen when no one else will listen, who will make available resources when there are no other spaces that resources can be found. And so I think the church stands in a unique place and offers an opportunity as a space that can be, in some instances, neutral and allow for these kinds of conversations to happen, and also allow for us to reconsider, as David suggests, for us to think again about how we do our relationships as people living in Trinidad and Tobago and across the region, to consider what it looks like to make safer communities as we seek to equalize matters and offer opportunities for reconciliation, for the building of resilience, and for helping persons work through those difficult things that they experience at the hands of the law, at the hands of officers, at the hands of unjust systems that we're all trying to dismantle. One of the things that we face as church, and I think we will touch on during the course of the conversation as well, is how the law is administered. And what I have experienced, both in the context of the church and in the society at large, is that we seem to operate in extremes sometimes. And so either there's great rigidity on the one side, or some ambivalence or ambiguity on the other end, where it's left to the person who is exercising the authority to determine, based on his or her whim or fancy, how the thing will be administered. And that also then contributes to the violence, contributes to the inequality, and causes some of the harm and pain that people experience in their daily lives. And so I think looking at how the law is administered, I think is also something that is an important part of the discussion and the conversation. Because at the end of the day, regardless of where we are, who we are, there are some things that are common about us in our humanity, I believe, and that is trying to make meaning, seeking guidance for what is best for our lives and the lives of the people that we love, hoping that we will all experience dignity and respect, and that others will treat us with dignity and with respect, and knowing that there is a place for us even if we are different. Even if we may be vulnerable and be born into spaces that are vulnerable spaces, that we all hope that someone will contribute to leveling the playing field and helping us step forward and step up as we live our lives. And so that is whether we're women experiencing violence or discrimination, and the church is right there with those dealing with trying to equalize things as it relates to gender relations and the integration of women in the context of the leadership of the church, whether it be children at the hands of adults and parents who treat them as if they are property and treat them as if they are not in fact human, or whether you may be a trans person or a person who is gay or lesbian, struggling with the same issues of being excluded, of being treated less than, of not being allowed the same services, the same freedoms as other citizens. And so I hope that we can continue to talk about those intersectionalities and how we can work for solutions as we collaborate in different ways. Thank you.